Have you ever wondered why suffering exists in the world? Why does God allow it? Suffering is something we all face, in different forms and at various points in our lives. But what does the Catholic Church teach us about suffering? And how can we find meaning in it? Today, let's explore the Church's view on suffering and how it connects to our faith. First, the Catholic Church teaches us that suffering is a reality of life. Since the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, suffering has been a part of the human condition. In Genesis 3 verses 16 to 19, we learn that because of sin, human beings would experience pain, hardship, and death. Suffering, then, is not something God created or desired, but rather a consequence of humanity's separation from Him. Yet, God does not leave us in our suffering, He walks with us through it. One of the most profound ways we understand suffering is through the example of Jesus Christ. In His passion and crucifixion, Christ experienced the deepest suffering imaginable. The Catechism of the Catholic Church reminds us that Jesus, the Son of God, suffered for us and with us, CCC 1505. His suffering was not in vain. Through His suffering and death, He redeemed humanity and showed us that suffering can be transformed into something redemptive. In 1 Peter 2 verse 21, we read, "For to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example, so that you might follow in His steps." Jesus did not run from suffering, but embraced it with love. His suffering teaches us that pain and hardship can have a purpose. When we unite our suffering with Christ's, it becomes a way for us to grow in holiness and draw closer to God. The Church also teaches that suffering has the potential to purify us. In Romans 5 verses 3 to 4, St. Paul writes, "We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope." Suffering is a way for us to grow in virtue, to develop strength, and to deepen our trust in God's plan for us. It reminds us that we are not in control, and that true hope and peace come from trusting in God's love. But suffering is not something we are meant to endure alone. The Church emphasizes the importance of community. In times of suffering, we are called to support one another. As St. Paul writes in Galatians 6 verse 2, "Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." The Church is a family, and when one member suffers, all suffer. By praying for one another and offering acts of charity, we become the hands and feet of Christ, helping each other carry our burdens. Additionally, the Church encourages us to find meaning in suffering through the lens of Christ's resurrection. While suffering is real and painful, it is not the end of the story. Jesus' resurrection brings hope that suffering is temporary and that eternal life awaits us. As St. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4 verse 17, "For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison." Our suffering, when united with Christ, has eternal value. It is not meaningless, but part of the journey that leads us to eternal life with God. In conclusion, the Church teaches us that suffering is a part of life, but it is not something to fear or avoid. Through Christ's example, we see that suffering can be redemptive and transformative. It is an opportunity for us to grow in faith, hope, and love, and to trust in God's plan for our lives. Let us remember that, even in our suffering, we are never alone. Christ is with us, and He offers us His strength, His love, and His peace. Let us unite our sufferings with His, knowing that they have meaning and purpose in God's grand plan for us.